This is the Nashvillager podcast. It's July 20th, 2026. On this day in 1938, the U.S. Department of Justice filed suit against the biggest film studios in Hollywood, accusing them of violating antitrust laws. It took a decade for the case to wrap up, but ultimately the Supreme Court decided that the so-called studio system was illegal. That's what they called the way that major movie studios at the time wielded ultimate control and ownership over not just the making of films, but of actors' careers, film distribution, the movie theaters themselves, to a point that independent operators barely stood a chance. I'm Nina Cardona, and this is your daily digest of what's happening around Middle Tennessee with context and backstory from Nashville Public Radio, WPLN News. The ruling in United States versus Paramount Pictures et al. Triggered a fundamental shift in the way that industry worked. Some suggest another sea change in the film business is happening right now, with power structures crumbling and reforming. And Tennessee officials hope this state has a role to play. Funny enough, Paramount is the studio name that gets repeated again and again in the current situation, just as it was in that old court case, even though in both situations it's not the only studio involved. In that case, it was just the first studio name in the list of several, but things would get abbreviated to only mention Paramount. And in fact, one of the other studios on that original list, Warner Brothers, is also a player in the story of the moment. I am, of course, talking about the proposed merger between Paramount Skydance and Warner Brothers Discovery. The old legacy studios have already been through a dizzying list of mergers with companies that make other kinds of media. And this deal would create a combination of filmmaking, streaming platforms, television channels, and more to the tune of more than $110 billion. If it happens, the resulting company would control about a third of America's film industry and about a third of the available TV channels. If it stays put in Hollywood, that's just a reshuffling of the Economic and Community Development, or ECD, deck as far as California is concerned. But if that merger happens and another state can lure the company away, well, it's the kind of deal every ECD official dreams of. I think it's pretty clear that the powers that be here in Tennessee took note of the fact that Paramount Skydance CEO David Ellison had a home here in Nashville for years. And the company his dad founded, Oracle, is building a major campus here with plans to make it the company's new headquarters. So they clearly thought, if any state has an opportunity to lure that merged behemoth away from Hollywood, it's ours. At the start of this month, Deputy Governor Stuart McWhorter wrote to Ellison about how business-friendly and accommodating Tennessee can be. The Hollywood Reporter, which broke the story, published the letter in full on its website. In it, McWhorter writes about how our state is already a proven player in supporting an entertainment industry. He said this is, quote, a state where creativity and technology converge, where talent is developed intentionally, and where innovation is embraced. But what would it actually mean for a company like that to relocate? Would this just become a home for back office operations? Or would there really be an attempt to produce more film and television shows here? Would it be truly feasible to move a substantial amount of production away from a community where an entire network of freelancers, actors, and third-party service providers exists as a source of manpower, scenery, costumes, props, design? How realistic is the idea of relocation? And of course, before any of that can even be truly considered, there are legal hurdles for that merger. Last week, a dozen states, including California, sued to stop the deal from going through. That case bears echoes of the one that broke up the studio system all those years ago. It's also an antitrust case, after all. So David Ellison has some other business to attend to before he can spend too much time considering Tennessee's overture. And it's pretty clear from the letter itself that officials here haven't had a chance to actually talk to Ellison about moving. The message closes with hopes that he might be open to a conversation. Pretty preliminary stuff. Of course, if and when any conversations do happen, we probably won't know about them unless a relocation deal is made. A lot of government records can be requested by the public, but talks to bring companies to the state are generally kept private. In just a few minutes, if you like your films on a giant immersive screen, Nashville has a cinema option not every city can offer. That's coming up after the newscast.
1 year ago, Congress defunded public media. So what happened next? Well, Aaron in Nashville decided to make a donation to WPLN. He was not alone, and he wrote a little note. You've always had our backs. Now, more than ever, is our time to have yours. Man, he was paying attention. That's an amazing reminder to me about this connection between WPLN's service and our community. I'm Tony Gonzalez, local news director, and I'm proud to say that we're now 100% community funded. I would love for you to join today, too. It takes about 2 minutes at WPLN.org. Mary in Burns, she took those 2 minutes to give. For her, it was a first-time contribution. She also happens to be a newcomer to the area, so she's soaking in all the local news, traffic, culture stories. This is Nashville. She sounds like a super listener to me. And now she's a member. Thank you to Mary and everyone who has used this moment to strengthen Nashville Public Radio. Give at WPLN.org/give.
Here's the latest from WPLN News. Election observers are expecting only modest turnout for voting in the partisan primaries. Early polls opened Friday. In Nashville, just shy of 5,000 residents cast ballots during the first 2 days. Among them was Benny Perkins. He just turned 71 and says early voting is efficient and flexible and is worth taking advantage of.
In today's time, it's never more serious to exercise your right and privilege to vote. Things are working against the nation as a whole when it comes to free voting, so we should stand up for our rights,
At the Bordeaux Library in Nashville, Katrina Neal made a point to vote on the very first day.
I early voted because I knew I was going to get busy and I knew how important voting would be, and I wanted to make sure that my voice was heard. The process was super easy. I was in and out in less than 4 minutes. It was great.
Early voting continues through August 1st. Voters are choosing the Democratic and Republican candidates who will square off in November. Contests include governor, U.S. congressional seats, and the state house. The race for the state's 6th congressional district is wide open. WPLN Cynthia Abrams explains who's vying for incumbent John Rose's spot and why the electorate may be unfamiliar with those candidates.
District 6, which for people living in East Nashville, that's you, is maybe the race with the most Republican dollars in it. That's because incumbent John Rose is vacating his seat to instead run for governor, and that's left 2 experienced, well-funded candidates vying for the spot. That's 8-year State House Representative Johnny Garrett and former Congressman Van Hillary. Both are Trump-aligned ultra-conservatives who have raised well over $1 million, but both do have less connection to the district after redistricting. In the state house, Garrett represents people who won't be voting in this race, and Van Hillary was elected to Congress in 1995, but in a completely different area.
There are other Republicans in the field, though with substantially less cash on hand. On the Democratic side, the last election's primary winner, Laura Bergman, is running again, but is facing challengers, including the race's best-funded Democrat, Chady Mosley. Learn more about who's running in Middle Tennessee's recently redrawn congressional districts at WPLN.org. The controversial data center proposed near the Nashville Zoo has taken a key step forward. Axios Nashville reports the company DC Blocks closed on its purchase of the 23 acres. The cost came out to $1 million per acre. As the new owners, Atlanta-based DC Blocks also filed a new building permit application. The Metro Council and Mayor Freddie O'Connell have been racing to block the proposal after sweeping public pushback and a public opposition campaign by the zoo. The council could vote Tuesday on a data center moratorium. The mayor is also attempting to condemn the land so that Metro can buy it for city purposes. Still, the project may be able to move ahead because of rules that effectively grandfather in developments that precede new regulations. The next man scheduled to be executed in Tennessee has won a concession in the courts. A Nashville judge is ordering the state to say whether a particular doctor will participate in the next lethal injection on August 13th, after that same doctor was involved in a botched execution in May. Participants in an execution are typically kept secret, but the judge found the state already identified Dr. Mark Walton Fowler as the physician involved in May. Since that failed execution, there have been widespread concerns about the doctor's inability to find a central vein after more than an hour of trying. The next man scheduled for execution is Daryl Hines. He has been on death row for 40 years and has been debilitated by a series of strokes this year. His attorneys argue there's a high chance the same doctor would jeopardize the procedure. In the wake of the failed execution, Republican lawmakers and faith leaders have been among those pushing for an independent review. Governor Bill Lee has not granted that probe, nor a moratorium. Nearly 3 years after 18-year-old Henry Willis killed himself after buying a ghost gun online, a jury in Kentucky awarded his mother more than $100 million in damages. The out-of-state sellers didn't respond to the lawsuit, show up for the trial, or defend themselves. Everytown Law, which represented the teen's mother, says it's the largest jury award made against a gun seller in U.S. history. Here's Everytown lawyer Dana Mulhauser.
They sent a message to the entire ghost gun industry that they can no longer treat the lives of our children as a cost of doing business.
The kits are called ghost guns because manufacturers sell them as parts without serial numbers or the usual background checks. A 2022 Biden-era rule requires background checks and serial numbers for certain gun kits, and the Supreme Court upheld the policy. In some ways, Nashville is already gearing up to host the Super Bowl in 4 years. City police are making the case that now is the time to come up with new technology, though some experts believe the city should figure out alternative options. For WPLN News, Emily West reports.
From his vantage point in front of a bank of screens showing real-time surveillance footage, Greg Blair with Metro Police sees the value of technology. And he says it's critical to have more ahead of one of the biggest events in the nation.
Right. We just had the 4th of July, had a great event. We didn't start planning for the 4th of July on the 3rd. Nashville has just announced the Super Bowl. We're not going to start in 29 planning. We're talking right now.
For the department, that could mean license plate readers, which use a camera to take pictures of passing vehicles, and more cameras throughout Metro. Right now, there are cameras mostly downtown. However, Matthew Griglier says any city should be careful before adding camera networks. He's a senior policy analyst at the Electronic Frontier Foundation and says there's an amount of privacy expected when it comes to geolocations as residents move throughout the city.
But the way these things are set up, when you start talking about Fusus and Flock ALPR systems, is that they're following your movements in aggregate. So it's not just walking, past one intersection. It's that you walk past that intersection and make a left and then a right. And using these tools in aggregate, they could map your entire movements throughout a day.
As for Metro, they said they are trying to meet the public where they are with technology. And for right now, because of concerns, that means waiting on any new tools. Emily West, WPLN News.
You can hear a full discussion of surveillance tools and the ongoing debate in our city on the This Is Nashville podcast feed. The school system in Montgomery County has determined the fatal bus crash in March was caused by the driver's, quote, unforeseeable sudden loss of consciousness. News Channel 5 reports the district is defending the driving record of its bus driver and says that a stroke or other medical event led the driver to cross the center line. The bus collided with a dump truck, killing 2 children. Their families have since sued. The district has also asked for a trial in front of a judge, not a jury. You'll find more news anytime at WPLN.org. The hottest ticket in town right now is for a movie. The Odyssey is in theaters, and there's only one screen in all of Nashville where you can see it as director Christopher Nolan intended, in 70mm IMAX. Music and culture reporter Justin Barney was in the projection booth at that lone theater, Regal Opry Mills, to see what is new about one of the oldest stories ever told.
IMAX projectionist Dean Fick points his headlamp at a 500-pound reel of film in the darkened projection booth at Regal Opry Mills.
When I push the button, this platter will start to spin, and it's going to start spinning at what seems like an alarming rate of speed. We're going to start it.
Sounds good, thank you.
We have to get 300 feet of film per minute going through this projector. Looking good so far.
This is not how movies are done anymore. In fact, a movie has never been made this way. Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey is the very first film to be shot from start to finish in IMAX 70mm. The Belcourt Theater in town is showing The Odyssey in 35mm, which is standard. Their projectionist Bob Roberts explains the difference.
Literally, it's the size of the film, the actual film that the images are printed on. So the bigger it is, the more dense the picture quality can be, because you can pack that much more information into a bigger space.
It's literally as close to real life as humanly possible. Most new TVs at home display images in 4K. IMAX 70mm delivers something that's closer to 18K. No one has ever made a movie like this before because it's an incredibly cumbersome way to make a movie. It's on actual real film. The cartridges for the camera only carry enough for 3.5 minutes of film. You're stuck with the take you got. It's heavy. It's loud. And the film itself costs a fortune. Hollywood just hasn't seen filming in IMAX 70mm as economically viable. When movies went to digital, projectionist David Fick said that most people just figured that the jig was up, and they started destroying IMAX projectors.
Fortunately, not all of the film projectors were destroyed, and I will be honest with you, I thought that film was never ever going to come back because it's so much more expensive than the digital.
But Christopher Nolan is obsessed with IMAX, and he's trying to prove with this movie that there's an audience for it. Only one place in Nashville is equipped to show the film as Nolan wished: Regal Opry Mills. It's maybe unfair that there is only one place in Nashville, but it's not a ripoff. There's actually only 41 screens in the world that are capable of screening IMAX 70mm film. And Fick says that the Regal Opry Mills is even more special than that.
This particular theater also is a no-compromise IMAX theater. A lot of the newer IMAX theaters that came out from, say, 2010 onward were retrofits, whereas this particular theater, it's a no-compromise IMAX theater, so it has the true 1.43 to 1 aspect ratio.
Fick himself represents Regal's commitment to IMAX. He's been projecting IMAX films for over 40 years, but he doesn't even live here. He lives in Ohio, and he's retired. There are so few people who know how to project in 70mm that Regal pulled him out of retirement for one last ride. Getting tickets for the Odyssey has been like getting tickets to a sporting event. It's the first movie ever to start selling tickets an entire year before the first screening.
Yeah, it sold out quite quickly.
Regal Cinema's Senior Vice President of U.S. Content, Brooks LaBeouf, says that showing the film is a good investment.
For us, it was within the first 24 hours, it was sold out for the IMAX.
So once it's sold out, they added showtimes. There are screenings starting at 7 a.m. and going till 11 p.m. Regal told me that they would have added a 3 a.m. showing if they had more trained projectionists like Dean Fick.
When you have filmmakers of Christopher Nolan's quality who are making films like this, there's an economic case to be made, and we can see it demonstrated right here because I'm sure in this sellout house there are people who have probably used frequent flyer mileage or spent their own funds to fly into Nashville to watch this particular showing.
And Nolan's ambition is paying off. Forbes reports that the Odyssey took in over $260 million this weekend. That's the most for any live-action movie this year and a personal best opening weekend for Christopher Nolan. As a movie lover and a businessman, Regal's LaBeouf says that he's not surprised that Nolan's gamble on 70mm paid off.
I mean, listen, it's a 3,000-year-old story, and it's being told with the biggest canvas ever invented. I think that there's something that Nolan saw with that he wanted to pay it the respect that it deserves. The frame's so big that it fills your entire field of vision from floor to ceiling. You're not just watching Odysseus's voyage, you're on the ship.
Right now, the contract for the Odyssey at Regal Opry Mills is to run for 4 weeks. It's going from now until August 15th. But they will extend the run if demand continues. For Nashville Public Radio, I'm Justin Barker.
It's just impressive, just look at it.
We do this roundup of Nashville news every weekday, so subscribe in your favorite podcasting app to make sure you never miss an episode. And if you like this, you'll probably enjoy the Nashvillager newsletter too. You'll get perspective from more of my colleagues at Nashville Public Radio and links to the stories we're following. Sign up for those daily emails at WPLN.org/Nashvillager. Thanks so much for listening. Let's make this day a good one, and we'll catch back up tomorrow.